Welcome to the Lean Out Your Business podcast, a show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs accelerate business growth and simplify success. I'm your host, Crista Grasso, and I've been working with businesses for more than 2 decades to help them lean out and optimize what's working while eliminating anything that's not adding value. So if you are ready to get more time back in your day, more profit in your business, and to do business differently, growing and scaling on your terms, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. Today, I'm super excited to be talking with Jordan Eades, and we are going to dive into a topic that I really think and really wish that more business owners talked about, and this is the dark side of success. And wait until you hear Jordan's story. So let me tell you a little bit about Jordan before I have her tell you a little bit more about herself. So Jordan Eades is the owner and creator of Your Best Business Life. She is a serial entrepreneur who ran and sold a highly successful 8-figure general contracting company before she pivoted and launched an epic 2-year RV adventure across 40 plus states, which I don't know about you guys, but who else does not want to do that? Like, I would love to rent an RV and just go across the US. Today, she helps female business owners break through the ugly cycle of overworking and burnout to create sustainable and profitable businesses, invest in self-care without feeling guilty, and bring joy and pleasure back into their lives. Jordan, I'm super excited that you're here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
All right, so we've got to dig into this. There was obviously something that happened with your highly successful 8-figure business that you chose to sell and then go across the country for 2 years in an RV.
So, how's that for a pivot?
Let's talk about that, and I'd like to just dive right into some of the dark side of success and what people at that level experience.
For sure. Well, and it obviously didn't start out that way. When my husband and I purchased his family's general contracting company, and this was coming out of the crash of '08. So we thought that we had this nice, slow trajectory to kind of get used to our business, get our feet wet as business owners. General contracting was a new foray for me. And, as opportunity would have it, we looked at military contracting and got into that, and our slow growth turned into explosive growth overnight. It's one of those things, I know you talk about this a lot, about getting ready to scale and what that actually looks like. So I would say that we were not ready to scale. And as we were climbing, the mountains of, obviously we had some ideas in our mind of what success would look like when we got to 7 figures, when we got to 8 figures. And at the time, and I think this is so common from entrepreneurs, I was in that mindset of I'll just do whatever it takes. And so for me, that looked like a lot of long hours. That looked like doing all the things. That looked like putting my life on hold in terms of, I used to go and do yoga and I'd hang out with my friends and I had hobbies, but then I felt like I needed to sacrifice all of that for the sake of the business. And I also got into that tricky habit of if, we get to this point, then I will pull back and I'll do some yoga, or then Zach and I will finally celebrate our anniversary. And I think it's also common, we know that we just have more and more mountains to climb as we're trying to reach those success milestones. And it gets to be a really slippery slope if we're not prioritizing those things. So, I ended up becoming more and more overwhelmed and more exhausted. And there was these moments where I'd stop and I would think to myself, is it really supposed to be like this? Because at that point, I was, we passed 7 figures and it was like, oh, this is great, but I'm not feeling so hot. And then we got to 8 figures and it should be like, woohoo. And I'm like, wow, I feel like crap. So I think normalizing what that feels like or what that can feel like is really important, kind of pulling back the curtain. And also it was really interesting because I would hear all the time, like, you guys are so successful, you know, you're really killing it. And I'm like, well, yeah, but this is killing me. And again, because I was prioritizing everything but myself. And I had a lot of warning signals along the way. And I'm sure you hear a lot of this too, is that I was having a lot of anxiety, right? Because my nervous system is in this constant state of stress, this constant go, go, go. So of course I'm anxious. I can't sleep very well. I'm drinking tons and tons of coffee. And then I have the trouble concentrating and just feeling completely depleted all the time. And then of course what happens as a byproduct is you start to feel less and less enthusiastic about your business. It's like something that was really exciting in the beginning and super joyful was starting to feel like, oh, this is really a drag. I'm just having to do this grind over and over and over again. So in the midst of all of this, I should have reached out for support. But I think what happens as we start to reach those pinnacles is we feel afraid to be vulnerable and kind of pull back that curtain to say, you know, I need some help and I need some support. And I was putting so much pressure on myself to appear like I had it all together, right? I didn't want people, I'd reached these upper echelons and I didn't want people to see me as not credible, not competent, you know, not smart. And certainly I didn't want them to doubt me or my business. So I kind of put on the mask and I would run around and I would say, oh, I'm fine, I'm great, you know, nothing to see here. And at the same time, I'm falling apart, right? In the middle of all of it, because I really needed the support and I was really isolating. So this, you know, continued for quite a long time. And as you talk a lot, I didn't know those keys, especially that's why I love Lean Out Method so much, to being both successful and sustainable.
One of the things I talk about a lot is the illusion of success. And I think the illusion of success can take on two forms. There's the outward illusion where you look at a fancy website and a large social media following and this beautifully crafted emails and you think this person has it all together. Meanwhile, they are in the red and stressed out all the time. But the other side that sometimes I think we don't recognize at all is when you are successful, your business is successful. What you guys were able to do in that short period of time is absolutely amazing and very inspiring. But meanwhile, behind the scenes, you feel like it's a little bit of an illusion because you don't feel the success. You feel like, oh my God, I hope nobody sees what I'm really experiencing.
Oh,
and
100%. And, you know, I'm balancing all of these things at time, and especially with female entrepreneurs, I know that we know this. You know, I was a new mama. I'm deeply involved in my community. I'm running this big business. I'm doing all the things. And yes, I'm literally holding myself together by the seams, right? Kind of ready to burst at any moment.
Speaking of that, something had to have happened that had to have been a catalyst that made you finally say, this is no longer working. And even though the business is successful, I need a change. And you guys decided to sell the business. So that must have been a really challenging decision. So walk us through that.
Oh, 100%. And I will say what's interesting about it is that it didn't happen overnight. And I tell this story, how Zach and I, you know, kind of feeling one of those stories where you should have felt like you have arrived. We were invited to an all expense paid trip to Pebble Beach, right? One of these big contractor things. And, you know, instead of getting out and getting on the golf course and going to the spa and doing all those things, I was literally holed up in my hotel room reading a book on anxiety. And that's when I knew, you know, even for myself, like, this is not right. You know, I shouldn't feel this way. And that's when I started having those conversations with Zach, like, something has to change. We have to do something differently. I can't organize this anymore. I can't, you know, restructure it anymore. We have to change the balance. And we kept on having those conversations. And at the same time, from a health and wellness sort of standpoint, being in chronic stress put me in a state where I started to have autoimmune issues. And literally there came a day where I couldn't get out of bed. So I could no longer do business because I couldn't get to my business. And I've just had to allow myself to kind of fall apart. And I said to Zach, I'm not going to be, I have to take a step back. I'm not going to be able to do this in the capacity that I was before. I have to concentrate on getting myself well. I have to know how to do this in a sustainable way. It's not sustainable right now. And so he said, I don't want to do this without you. And we luckily found 2 employees in our business who were interested in purchasing the business from us. So we just decided to make this major life pivot. We had been talking about an RV journey for some time. Both of us are travel fanatics. And one of the big pieces too is that our son, was, I guess, 7 or 8 at the time. And we wanted to be able to spend more time with Isaac. That was the frustrating part about the business as well, is that it had pushed out all our family time. And so weekends would come around and we were so exhausted. We're like, oh, let's just watch a movie. And when we did go on family vacations, Zach and I were so exhausted that we wouldn't actually get out and do anything. So we're like, screw it. We're going to start over from scratch. So we sold the business, we sold our house, we sold all of our belongings. And we did take, as you said, an epic 2-year journey across the US. And it changed everything for me. And it's where I really discovered my wellness, my joy, what was meaningful to me, and learned a lot about connection and how that would support me. And now what is, what I do now in a new iteration of business.
Just for all of you listening, Jordan will be back. This will not be the only time Jordan is on the show. And we are going to dig into, in a future episode, a lot of what she's doing currently in her business, because I think it's so important and so powerful and so helpful for women. But today I really do want to talk about the dark side of success for the people who are there, because I bet as listeners are hearing your story, there's some parallels that they're probably seeing in their own lives. And why right now in particular do you think it's so important that we be talking about this?
Well, I think we're starting to have these conversations. I think in the past we've really glamorized what it can look like when you get to the top. Just get to this place and everything will be fine. All your problems will be solved and joy and happiness will be, yours. And the reality is, and I think we're seeing this shift coming out of COVID, is that we're starting to realize that we actually do need connection. We actually do need to make sure that we're taking good care of ourselves. And I've seen that there's different conversations in and around, hustle culture, and that we're not glamorizing hustle culture anymore. In fact, we're saying, or glorifying hustle culture. In fact, we're starting to say, no, what we should be rewarding is sustainable business practices, which includes making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. Our best selves do our best work, right? And with businesses like Lean Out Method, where you're saying like, wait a minute, you've seen it from a completely different perspective as well, right, Crista? Working with, Fortune 10 companies, and how they're saying like, hey, this doesn't work. We need to rethink this. We need to work in a leaner capacity.
Yeah, it's so true. And since you mentioned that, I do want to bring this up. I know a lot of times we see these big, huge companies. We see either, corporate companies that are in the billions, or we see businesses that are at 7, 8, 9 figures. And we think that's great for them, but I'm not there yet. I'll, worry about or think about some of those things when I get there. And I can tell you right now, working with the Fortune 10 clients that I'm currently consulting with, they are all putting an emphasis on self-care. They are instructing their staff to reduce the amount of time they're spending in meetings. They're trying to help people learn how to be more efficient and more lean in what they're doing. So that way, when they are working, they're getting the most out of it. And when they're not working, they don't have to feel like they're on all the time. And if these really big, huge companies are actually giving these decrees to their huge staff of people, you've got to think it is time that you do that in your own business, whether you're just breaking 6 figures or whether you're already at that 8-figure mark. Like, these are things that are so incredibly important.
It is so incredibly important. And it's, I think, a societal conversation about, our overall health and wellness, and the realization that we cannot effectively, run our businesses, just show up to our lives when we're in a state of constant chronic stress. And even through COVID, we were seeing record numbers of people experiencing burnout. And everything that comes along with that, and of course, just our overall general wellness really suffers when we're, putting on the gas, so to speak, without taking some time, taking off, easing off the gas, putting on the brake, and taking time to really nourish ourselves. And so I'm happy to see when I get out there and I review social media that there are more conversations about, taking time off, working smarter, not harder, and making sure that we just allow ourselves time to do nothing at all, right? Instead of the go, go, go all the time.
It's true. You've got to find what fuels you and make time for it. And so let's talk a little bit about somebody who might be in that place where they are just completely overworked. They are completely overwhelmed. Maybe they are afraid to kind of pull back the curtain and ask for help because they know that there's this illusion of success and people look up to them and they don't want anybody to know that they're struggling. And so what would you say, like, what are some of the tips that you have there?
First, I just want to say that having these type of conversations and even doing what we're doing right now helps to normalize this. So they need to know first and foremost that they're not alone, right? And that all of us experience some anxiety along the way. We're going to have our failures. We're going to have our successes. It's normal to doubt your abilities when you're struggling, question your purpose, lose your will, all those types of things. So what do we want to be thinking about when we're in the place? Well, first of all, we definitely want to make our number one priority our physical, our mental, our emotional wellness. It really, truly has to be a non-negotiable. And remember how I was talking about those if and when statements? We want to eliminate those and say, I will, do X. I will go to those yoga classes. Because the success and the longevity of our business depends on our best selves showing up, right? Our sustainability is all about making sure that we're infusing the wellness, the joy, and the connection into our calendars. So I often have people write down those things in their schedule first, so you're building your business around your practice of taking care of yourself, not the other way around. And the other part is, I would just say too, is that if you find yourself in that place where you're really struggling, don't be afraid to embrace the falling apart, because sometimes we can't move forward until, maybe it sounds a little bleak, but kind of like succumbing to the dark side. And what's really helpful in those moments is that you will, if you take that breath, if you take that breather, you'll find what will propel you forward. What we resist persists. So we need to think about that. Also, we need to cultivate and we need to engage in experiences that bring us joy and pleasure outside of our businesses. Another trap that I really see entrepreneurs falling into is they feel so amazing when the business is doing well, and then they completely feel like crap about themselves when the business is struggling, right? Instead of just seeing it as a normal part of the business experience, right? Businesses ebb and flow, they go up and down. We don't want to give the business too much control over our mindset. So that's really important, why I have people continue to prioritize their hobbies, the things that light them up, bring them joy outside of themselves, joy outside of the business, because that's what will bolster and buoy us when things get rocky, right?
Yeah. And I want to, because you've said this a couple times, and I think it's so important to re-emphasize the feeling of I will win. And I
Yes.
think so many of us, right? We go into business and we're like, we just got to get to six figures. We just got to get to six figures. When we hit six figures, it's going to be rainbows and unicorns, right? Like things are going to magically work. We're not going to stress about money anymore. It's all going to be good. We get to six figures and we're like, well, that's not nearly enough. Okay, seven figures it is. And we, work. And I will win. I get to seven figures, and seven figures isn't any really different than six figures. And then you do the same for eight, right? And the reality is you have to today, like right now, build the things in that Jordan is talking about, because that's what's actually going to get you quicker to six figures or seven figures or eight figures or whatever that looks like for you and for your business. But you can do it in that sustainable way instead of a way that drives you to burnout. And as much as buying an RV and traveling around the US for 2 years sounds amazing, you want to do that because you want to, and it sounds like a great vacation, and not because you're burnt out.
Yes, I 100% agree. I mean, man, by the time I basically had to like limp myself into the RV, and thank God Zach was in the conditions to drive it, because man, it really took us a lot of time. And that's so true. I mean, we have this running joke between the two of us is how many anniversaries were we like, well, we could do something, but we'll get to that next year, and frankly, I will even say for the two of us, it really took on our toll on our marriage as well, right? My life went to the dark side. Okay, my marriage went to the dark side in a really hardcore way. And thank God, Zach and I could bring it back together, but that's part of like nourishing ourselves, nourishing each other, right? And then as business partners at the time, we could have come back and put all that energy into our business. So
yeah, the one thing that I'm always so impressed with you for is the fact that you recognize this and you made that difficult decision to say, this isn't working for me. Yeah. And instead of getting to the point where you ended up in the hospital or with something even worse than what you were experiencing, you guys made the decision to sell the business and to rent the RV and do exactly what you wanted to do. A lot of people don't do that. And I think that give yourself permission to do that if that's something that you're thinking of doing. Like Jordan, I think that's so amazing that you guys did that. And I hope that's something that you're really proud of, because it's huge.
It is huge. And thank you for saying that and recognize that. And I love how you're also calling attention to the fact that people really do need to give themselves permission to be able to take a step back and to go after their dreams in a different way and to make changes, right? We need to give ourselves the permission to make changes when things aren't working, right? And yeah, I know there was a lot of vulnerability that went into that decision for sure, and a lot of sadness and a lot of grieving, because we loved that business so much, and we gave so much time and energy and attention, and also know that life has a lot of chapters. And frankly, if we hadn't made that decision, there's so much learning for myself and so much personal growth that I wouldn't have experienced. I would have stayed stuck, and I would never give up what I learned on that journey. I wouldn't have met you. I would meet, amazing connections, because I allowed myself to make a change. I allowed myself to be vulnerable and say, this isn't working anymore, So those are really important as well.
You took the time to actually commit to letting something go. And so let's talk a little bit about the challenges of letting things go, and the fact that sometimes, even though we know better, those tendencies have a way of coming back. And so let's talk about that in the context of today a little bit.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of fear. I mean, really, that's, I think, underneath it all. It's like all those what ifs, like, what's going to happen now if we let this go? And frankly, I remember, our accountants like literally saying to us, I think you guys are crazy to let go of this business, so it wasn't, we had a lot of people, because again, everything from the outside looked amazing, and it's pretty impressive to do what we did in that short period of time and reach those milestones of the 8 figures and to be able to do it consistently year after year. So, all the questions came up of, are we going to be okay financially? What are we going to do now? All of our employees going to be okay if we sell this business? And the beauty of it is that you can plan for yourself financially to be able to make these big pivots. You absolutely can. You can discover new parts of yourself, get closer to your zone of genius. And sometimes we have to let things go in order to be able to do that, right? I think, and getting yourself the support to make those changes. I think that's one of the things that it's important for now. You were saying, how can these things sneak up on you, and can old patterns rear your head? And I think I will say yes. This is something that I really have to work at, even in this iteration of this business, is making sure that I'm walking my talk in terms of making sure that there's lots of space for wellness, there's lots of space for joy, and there's lots of space for connection. It's constantly working that path, and it's not always easy. That's why all of us need that connection and support. That's why masterminds are so important. That's why group work is so important. That's why coaching is so important. Because it is, it's something that can come up as we're learning those new skills again and again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for many of us who grew up working really hard and feeling like that was how you do business, and then it takes a lot of years to learn that there is actually another way. You do not have to hustle your way to success, but old habits die hard sometimes. And no matter how much we logically know it, it can be easy to sometimes fall back into those traps. And I think that's where people like you come in to kind of keep people like, hey, remember self-care, remember to do things that bring you joy.
Yeah. And sometimes it's we're actually building new skill sets, we're building new skill sets, we're building new neural pathways, new habits. And it doesn't happen overnight when these things are so ingrained in you. And yes, it has absolutely our culture, in terms of work hard, even how we look at retirement, right? Work hard for 50, 60, almost close to 70 years of your life, and then take a break. No, that was another part of the, RV journey is Zach and I had serious concerns about whether, we were going to be able to do some of the things that we wanted to be able to do in a physical sense. At a later time in life, we kind of felt like we needed to do this now. Plus, spending time with Isaac, we didn't want to wait. Having that family time. I mean, that was just such a amazing part of that journey, is watching, Isaac grow and change and experience the world, for a couple of years at a really special time in his life. I mean, what that did to our family bond was nothing short of amazing.
What are your top 3 things that you think people really should be thinking about if they're experiencing the dark side of success?
I think curating your community of connection support is really paramount. I talk a lot about, I've talked a lot about in the past, when I got to those upper echelons, I was really isolating, which was so dangerous. Isolation is the enemy of wealth, and not just wealth in a dollars figure, but even our health and our wealth, right? So those types of things. We as humans are so biologically designed to connect, to attach, and it helps us regulate our nervous systems. So obviously, when we're working at those at any level, we have to be careful of chronic stress, and making sure that we're staying connected helps us fight against, those stressful situations for the body and mind. It was one thing that when we had that RV journey too, that I was really intentional about, is making sure that I was connecting with not community in general, but also my business communities. And it really helped with, not being as vulnerable as to get out of isolation. And then there's just so much synergy that happens, your possibilities increase, your creativity thrives. So that should always be, for first and foremost on our minds, especially for those people who tend to be a little bit more introverted and kind of think, well, I can do this on my own. I'll be just fine. You're smiling.
Like, that's me.
Right. And to some extent that was me too, so that's one, really big takeaway. Also, I think just revisiting that piece of design your business around your life and not your life around your business, right? I mean, I think you can really speak to this. This is some of what you're talking to us about with Lean Out method, right? And when we do the exercise with Time Pie and just saying like, we need to make sure that we are prioritizing things that bring us joy and light us up outside of our business. Taking time for pleasure. That I certainly was not doing that, when I was working, with a general contracting company, and that got me in a lot. So, and then again, I think the number one, thing that I'm always talking about is that wellness piece. It's a non-negotiable top priority. You have to get out and move your body. You have to nourish your body with good foods. You have to be thinking about, what's in your general environment and how is that, contributing to, your overall health and wellness. That's so, so important. So, just a few takeaways there. I really do feel so blessed to be able to come out of the other side of this and really want to encourage, women to step forward who are in this place, and are feeling those questions that I was feeling like, why I should be all puppies and rainbows and unicorns, and it doesn't feel very good. And so I really want to encourage those women to, step out of their comfort zone and reach out and get out of isolation. And then also for women who have been there, let's be vulnerable. Let's share our stories of inspiration and also what it's like to be on the other side. I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, I completely agree, because too often it just looks really glamorous and it looks really easy and it looks like the rainbows and unicorns. And I think because of that, people are so afraid and they feel like they're doing something wrong, or other people know something that they must not know because they're struggling. And why are they struggling when everybody else makes it look so easy? So I think we need more conversations like this, and we need more people like you who are willing to share their real story and what really happens on your road to success.
Truly, I'm willing to air the dirty laundry, so to speak, because I know it's so, so important. And I also know what it looks like on the other side and how to get out of it and what we can do, because absolutely, can you have a 6, 7, 8-figure business, or even just be in that entrepreneurial stage and be doing it without putting yourself in a state of chronic stress or burning out? Absolutely, 100%. But we can't do it if we don't know how, and we need to have those conversations.
So speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now. I know I'm going to have you back on and we're going to dive all into your best business life, but tell us what's going on for you in your current business and where can people find out more about you?
So, I have a one-on-one coaching program, which is phenomenal, and just really enjoying that work and being able to talk about, the pillars of business and joy and wellness and connection. And I also get to bring in Lean Out method, which I love so much. So I am doing that right now. And if people want to find out more about me, more about my work, just to go out to www.yourbestbusinesslife.com. I do have a workshop coming up, so people can learn more about that. Just yourbestbusinesslife.com/workshop, and also find me on Facebook at Your Best Business Life. We have lots of fun things that are happening there, and so it just feels really good. And to be able to just come through this, and again, like I talked about, the personal growth and being able to share that with female business owners, women in business, entrepreneurs, so that they can hopefully either, circumvent the situation that I was in, or, get out of it if they're feeling like they're in that place. We all, as women, we need to continue to up-level each other. And this is all part of that.
Thank you so much for being on today. This
Thank
was
you.
such a great conversation. We look forward to you coming back and diving much more into your best business life. So everyone, you will find the links below this episode to where you can find Jordan. And Jordan, we will talk soon. Thanks, everyone. See you next week. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Lean Out Your Business podcast. I hope you got a lot of value and actionable insights from today's show and would love if you take a moment to leave us a review. If you have any questions on today's episode or on how to lean out your business, join us over in our private Facebook community where every week we do live training and Q&A, and I'd love to have you be part of the conversation. Head to leanoutmethod.com/group to join us. And before you go, be sure to subscribe to the show so you're the first to know when we release a new episode. We'll see you next week.